Okay, we'll start today's session. In previous class, we discussed about scientific management theory. In this class, we are going to discuss about administrative management. Okay, Henry Fayol is considered as a father of administrative management theory. His perspective, unlike that of Taylor, who is the father of scientific management theory, extended beyond the shop level and the physical production processes and was of a macro nature, covering the general administrative and managerial functions and processes at the organizational level. So that means in scientific management theory, Taylor concentrated on first line managers, whereas in case of administrative management theory, Henry Fayol concentrated on a top level management, top and middle level management. That's why it is known as administrative management. The focus is on top level management, whereas in scientific management theory, the focus is on first line management. There are 14 principles proposed by Henry Fayol. Okay, so these are called as 14 principles of management, or Henry Fayol's 14 principles. So it includes division of work. So that means in any organization there are number of workers. Okay, and work will be divided among workers based on the qualification, based on the experience, based on the skill set. Work will be distributed among workers. Okay, that is the division of work. Next, authority and responsibility. So if you want to give orders to subordinates, then you should have power. Okay, in order to frame rules, in order to execute the policies, you should have authority. Okay, authority will give you power. Okay, when you have authority, along with that, you must be able to bear the responsibility to execute your functions or execute the functions of the manager. So that is the authority and responsibility. If you don't have authority, you cannot give orders to your subordinates. Okay, if you don't have right, how can you control your subordinate? So that's why authority must be clearly defined in any organization. Who has to give orders to whom? Okay, so that is authority. If you have authority, that means power to control your subordinates. Okay, so then you have to execute your function. So that is the responsible. That is the responsibility of the manager. Next, discipline. So for any organization, discipline is needed. Okay, so this principle suggests organization should maintain discipline. Okay, in order to achieve its objectives, there must be discipline in the organization. Next, unity of command. So that means each employee should receive instructions about a particular work from one superior only. If more than one is giving instructions to one employee, then there will be confusion. Okay, employee may be get confused whose order should be obeyed. Okay, so that is the problem. So in order to overcome this, he suggested that every employee should receive order from only one superior. There must be only one boss to employee. Next, unity of direction. So since in any organization people are working, okay, and there are several departments, each department will be having separate tasks or functions to perform. Okay, every department of an organization should work towards achieving the objective of the organization. Okay, that is the unity of direction. Every department should focus on the objectives of the organization. That is unity of direction. Next, subordination of individual interest to general interest. So that means as individuals, we have our own goals. Okay, that goal may be to get promotion, to get salary hike. So that may be individual interest. But people in an organization, when they are working in as a team, okay, they should not concentrate on individual interest rather than they have to work for the general interest of the organization. That is the meaning of subordination of individual interest to general interest. Organization should take necessary precautions to overcome this individual interest of managers. Next, remuneration. For every work done by employee, so they want reward, okay, materialistic reward in terms of salary or in terms of money, okay, that is the remuneration. So proper salary or proper remuneration should be paid for every work, otherwise it is difficult to manage or it is difficult to keep employees in an organization for long duration. Then centralization. The management must decide the degree of centralization or decentralization of authority on the basis of the nature of the circumstances, size of the undertaking, the type of activities and nature of organizational structure. Okay, centralization means power will be concentrated at top level management. So that is centralization. Decentralization means power will be distributed or authority will be distributed among various levels of the management. We understood centralization and decentralization by considering India as a nation. Okay, we have central government, state government, and panchayat. Okay, so that is decentralization. So that means instead of concentration of powers at center, okay, so in our people who frame constitution, they thought, okay, so decentralization is good for our country. Okay, that's why we have central government, state government, and even we have local governments. Okay, similarly in any organization, it has to decide, okay, what amount of powers should be retained at top level management. Okay, so what amount of power should be given to middle level management and low level management, that has to be decided. Scalar chain, this means the hierarchy of authority from the highest executive to the lowest one for the purpose of communication. That means who has to give order to whom. Okay, subordinate should receive order from whom. Who is the boss? Okay, that should be defined. That is another principle. Okay, so if you look at this pyramid like structure, okay, A is the boss, okay, is like CEO. Then B is subordinate to A. B will receive order from A. Similarly, C will receive order from B. D will receive order from C. E will receive order from D. Okay. So here also M will receive order from A, N will receive order from M, and O will receive order from N, and P will receive order from O. This is the scalar chain. Okay. So who has to give order to whom? Okay, who is the subordinate and who is the boss, that should be clearly mentioned. Okay, and here if you look at this organization structure, there is a horizontal line DO. Okay, so what does this line DO represents? Okay, so there is a line DO. Here you can see there is a horizontal line DO in this structure. So what D2O horizontal line? Okay, this horizontal line represents at times having a structure like this A to B, B to C, and D to C to D, and D to E is not sufficient. Okay, so there must be communication between various departments. Okay, people working in various departments should have interaction at that time. Okay, so this structure may need some variation. Okay, that variation will be provided with the help of a concept called gangplank. Okay, that means here D and O, okay, are communicating with one another. Okay, so that is the meaning. At times people have to need not obey the scalar chain. Okay, so depending on the situation in an organization. Next, order. Okay, so the principle of right place for everything and for every man should be observed by the management. to observe this principle, there is need for scientific selection of competent personnel, that is people or worker or employee, correct assignment of duties to personnel, and good organization. Okay, order is about organizing the resources. Okay, you are aware of layout, preparing layout for machine shop or workshop. Okay, the reason is you have to decide how systematically you can arrange the available machines, how effectively you can make use of available space. Okay, similarly, if you are managing human resource, then you should order. That means who has to do which work. Okay, so that is the order. So right place for everything and for every man. Okay, it is about organizing machines and human resource in an organization. Equity is nothing but equality. Okay, so organization managers should treat all his subordinates equally. Okay, so equity ensures healthy industrial relations between management and labor, which is essential for the successful working of the enterprise. So that means management should treat all employees equally. Management should be impartial. They should not do any partiality based on their leanings. Okay, based on religion or caste. Okay, they should not do partiality. That is the principle of equity. Everyone should be treated equally. Next, stability of tenure of personnel. Okay, so this is a principle related to job security. Okay, if people have job security, then they get connected to the organization. Okay, so this is also another principle. Stability of tenure of personnel. That means organization should try to retain people or employee. Okay, so by providing job security. Next, initiative. Employees should be encouraged to make all kinds of suggestions to conceive and carry out their plans even when some mistakes result. So that means at times some people or some okay have their own ideas, their own plans. Okay, at times they want to communicate, they want to tell something to their managers. Okay, so there must be provision in the management structure so that employees also can give suggestions or they can also involve in decision making process. So that is the principle of initiative, and this must be supported by the managers or management. Next, e-spirit D corps. Okay, so the meaning, this is a Spanish term. The meaning of this term is team spirit. Okay, to achieve team spirit, the motto of divide and rule should be avoided, and verbal communication should be used for removing misunderstandings. Okay, quite often some managers, usually you can see politicians will do this. Okay, so they will divide people on the basis of caste, religion. Okay, so similarly in organization also some managers may try to follow this divide and rule. Okay, so but it is not a good management okay, so principle. Okay, so in order to have good organization structure, okay, or in order to have a healthy management structure, okay, so divide and rule should be avoided. Next, limitations of administrative management. Division of labor results in the dissatisfaction among workers because it does not provide them the opportunity to use all their abilities. Okay, since workers are assigned the same tasks, okay, it may result in not utilizing their abilities. Okay, some workers have more skill set, they can do different types of tasks, they want challenging work to do. Okay, so this the principle of division of labor, where work will be assigned based on qualification, based on experience. Okay, it doesn't allow employees or people to do different types of tasks. Okay, so that is one of the limitation. Some of the principles of Henry Fayol are full of contradictions and dilemmas. Simon, he is also management expert, argued that principle of unity of command and the principle of specialization or division of labor cannot be followed simultaneously. That means if you try to implement unity of command, then you cannot implement division of labor. That is the argument by Simon. Okay, the reason is in case of division of labor, uh, based on the skills of labor, okay, a particular task will be assigned. Okay, so again the same labor may be required to do different tasks in different departments, whereas unity of command say, okay, so the employee should receive command from one superior, okay, one boss. But if you actually, if you try to implement division of labor, that may result in contradiction. That is the argument by Simon. These principles are based on few case studies only and have not been tested empirically. Empirically means based on experiments. Okay, so these principles, like they are like some thought that, or some felt that these principles are doesn't these principles are not supported by enough evidence, okay, because this lack empirical data, so that can be obtained with the help of experiment. This is also another limitation. These principles are often stated as unconditional statements of what ought to be done in all circumstances, when what is needed are conditional principles of management. That means these principles look like general statements. Okay, they may not be applicable for every situation. Okay, depending on the situation, one who is applying these principles, he has to make some modifications. Okay, so these are conditional principles. Depending on the suitability or depending on the situation in which you are working in, okay, you have to choose which principles need to be applied. Okay, it is not necessary that these are universal principles and you can apply them wherever required. It's not like that. Okay, so these are conditional principles. That means depending on the conditions, so you have to choose suitable principle for application. These principles are based on the assumption that organizations are closed systems, but actually organizations are open systems. Hence, the rigid structures which these principles tend to create do not work well under unstable conditions. So we are going to discuss what do I mean by open system and what do I mean by closed system. Okay, but these principles will don't bother about what is happening outside the organization. Okay, so that is another limitation of these principles. Okay, most of these principles are concerned with by considering organization as closed system. Closed system means organization doesn't have any relation with the outside world. It doesn't have any impact on what is happening in the society, or what is happening in politics of the country, or what is happening at government level, or what is happening at policy levels. Okay, these principles are not focusing on those issues. That is another limitation. Okay, next, bureaucracy. Okay, so what do we mean by bureaucracy? Huh? Have you heard the term bureaucracy? Hmm? What do you mean by bureaucracy? Okay, do you heard bureaucrats? Who are bureaucrats?
Sir, bureaucrats are those who will be doing policy and those who are administrating the districts and states, sir.
Okay, so you are considering IAS officers as bureaucrats.
Yes, sir.
Then only IAS officers are bureaucrats. They are also bureaucrats, no doubt. Then who are also included along with IAS officers? Hmm?
Sir, I think all India state services and civil services servants are bureaucrats, sir.
Okay. So bureaucracy means what even in India, okay, we are following bureaucracy. In general, we call babus. Okay, so babu is the very famous term used for bureaucrats, sarkari babu. Okay. Bureaucrats may be IAS officers, IPS officers, KAS officers, okay, officers. Okay, so they are the bureaucrats. In India also we are following bureaucratic system where our politicians, that means MP, MLAs, they will frame policies. Okay, so those policies will be implemented by bureaucratic system. Okay, so the implementation of decisions taken by government is on the shoulders of these bureaucrats. Okay, so we are going to discuss about this bureaucracy. Okay, Max
Sir, that
Weber.
means MP and MLA are not bureaucrats, right, sir?
They are politicians. They are policy makers. Okay, we call them as policy makers. They are not bureaucrats. Bureaucrats are people who are implementing those policies. Okay. Max Weber, a German sociologist, is known as the father of bureaucracy. Okay, he is the one who thought about having a system where policies will be implemented by bureaucrats, or it is better to have a bureaucratic system for implementation of policies or for administering an organization or a nation. About 1910, that means almost a century ago, about 1910, he made a study of different types of business and government organizations and distinguished three basic types of administration in them: leader oriented, tradition oriented, and bureaucratic. Okay, what do you mean by leader oriented? Which is the example for leader oriented administration? Which country is example for leader oriented administration? So most of the nations ruled by dictators. Okay, like North Korea. Okay, so who is the president of North Korea? No, who is the president of North Korea? So he is the very famous dictator of our times now. Okay, Kim. Okay, he is the example for leader-oriented administration. Okay, it is related to dictators. They will take decision according to their wish. Okay, that is the leader-oriented administration. What about tradition-oriented? What do you mean by tradition-oriented administration? Okay, before independence, who are ruling us or who are administering us? Who are looking after administration before independence?
British.
ಹೇಳಿ ಬಿಫೋರ್ ಇಂಡಿಪೆಂಡೆನ್ಸ್ ಈ ದೇಶನ ಯಾರು ಆಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ರು? ಕಿಂಗ್ಸ್. ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್. ಓಕೆ, ಸೊ okay, tradition oriented means, okay, it is like family rule. Okay, so after father, his son will be the successor or daughter will be the successor. Okay, this was happening in the time of where kings were ruling us. Okay, so after king, next his son is going to take the charge. Okay, even in politics, this has happened, and even today this is happening. Some families, okay, so father will be MP and son also will be MLA or MP. Father will be prime minister, son will be chief minister. Okay, so that is the tradition oriented. So ಅಪ್ಪ ಆದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಮಗ ಅಥವಾ ಮಗಳು, ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಅವ್ರ ಮಕ್ಕಳು, ಅವ್ರ ಮೊಮ್ಮಕ್ಕಳು. Okay, so this type of administration is called tradition oriented administration. Next is bureaucratic administration, where people based on their qualification, based on the knowledge they are having, based on the skill set, they are hired by a system. Okay, that is the bureaucratic administration. Scope will be for knowledge of the people and the skills they have. Okay, that is the bureaucratic administration. Okay, which is better when you compare leader oriented, tradition oriented and bureaucratic, which is better?
Bureaucratic.
Bureaucratic. Okay, you are also agreeing that the system we are following is best compared to leader oriented and tradition oriented. Okay. As we discussed, leader oriented administration means there is no delegation of management functions. That means only leader himself will take decision. He don't consult others. He don't consult his subordinates. That is the leader oriented administration. So no delegation means there is no delegation of authority to subordinates. Tradition oriented administration, managerial positions are handed down from generation to generation. That means from father to son or daughter, then again their grandchildren. So they are going to take over the administration. Okay, this will happen in times of king's rule. Even this will happen in case of family politics. Okay, even in democracy this is happening. We are witnessing that. Okay, some families are acquiring power. Okay, so from generation to generation, even in democracy. Okay, that is not good for the health of democracy. Okay, bureaucratic administration, delegation of management responsibilities is based on the person's demonstrated ability to hold the position. No person can claim a particular position either because of his loyalty to the leader or because the position has been traditionally held by members of his family. People earn positions because they are presumed to be best capable of filling them. If you want to become IAS officer, you know how much effort you need to put. Okay, what preparation you need to make. Okay, so that is the bureaucracy. So if you have capability, then you have to put a lot of effort to get these jobs. Okay, even if you want to become a KS officer, again you have to study a lot, you have to prepare, and you have to go through different go through a process of recruitment. Okay, so that is about bureaucracy. Here, since you belong to a particular family and other things, you cannot become IAS officer. Okay, so that is the bureaucracy. Okay. Weber considers a bureaucratic administration as the ideal type of administration. He thought that compared to leader oriented and tradition oriented, bureaucratic system is better. Okay, features of bureaucratic administration. Okay, there is insistence on following standard rules. The institutional cult should replace the personality cult. Okay, what do you mean by the this personality cult? What do you mean by personality cult? So if you want to become IAS, or if you have IAS or KS officer, okay, so you have to follow the rule book. That means you have to follow the standard rules already framed. Okay, you have to obey those rules. Otherwise, you will be suspended. At times, you will be removed from your duty. Okay, so that will happen if you don't follow the rules. And again, the institution cult should replace the personality cult. What do you mean by this? Okay, at times you see some IAS officers, even some IPS officers. Okay, like they behave like Singham and all those things. Okay, but in an ideal bureaucratic system, individual personality, okay, should not overlook the entire system. Okay, so even these IPS officers or IAS officers, they are part of a system. They should not behave like we are the hero and entire system is villain. That is not correct. Okay, so that is about building personality cult. That means someone will, because of some IAS and IPS officers, they are good at media management. Okay, by managing media effectively, they are able to, okay, build their personality. That is not good for overall bureaucratic system. Okay, next, there is a systematic division of work. Again, if you consider our system, there are IAS officers, there are KAS officers. Okay, so there are district collectors, tahsildars, sub registrars. Okay, so the work of a district administrator or district collector, work of DC, work of SP, work of tahsildar, work of sub-registrar, everything is defined. Okay, so in bureaucratic system, ಯಾರು ಏನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅನ್ನೋದು it is fully defined. Okay, so that there is a systematic division of work. There is no confusion in this. Okay, principle of hierarchy is followed. Okay, so in case of, if you consider police department also, they know who is the boss. Okay, at district level SP is the boss, and there are circle inspectors, then DYSP, then SI, then head constable, then constable. Like that, there is hierarchy in every department. This will happen. Okay, so there are directors, okay, deputy directors, then clerk, FDA, SDA, group D, like that. There is hierarchy. Okay, who is the boss, who has to follow, who is having authority, who can give orders. Okay, so everything is defined in bureaucracy, in bureaucratic administration system. There is no confusion. It is necessary for the individual to have knowledge of and training in the application of rules. Okay, that's why after if you successfully, if you pass IAS or KAS, after that you will be trained for 1 year, or during your probationary period you are going to get all knowledge and training. Okay, so that is also part of bureaucratic administration system. Okay, these are the things which will be followed in bureaucratic administration. Administrative acts, decisions, and rules are recorded in writing. Okay, so that's why there will be a service book. Okay, so every decision taken, okay, everything will be in paper. Okay, so that will be in written format. Everything will be recorded, and they have to face consequences if they don't follow the rules. Okay, so if they don't follow the guidelines, then they will be trouble in, they have to face consequences in future. There is rational personal administration. So that means there will be a service book for every officer. Okay, so in that service book everything will be entered. Okay, so ಅವರು ಯಾವಾಗ ಏನೇನು ಕೆಲಸ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, ಯಾವಾಗ ಏನು ತಪ್ಪು ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು, okay, everything will be available in the rule book, and based on that they are going to get promotion and all. Okay, limitations of bureaucracy. Okay, what are the limitations of this bureaucratic system? What are the limitations? Okay, if you go to RTO office, can you get license easily? What is your experience?
No, sir. Actually, initially they ask some amount, but if he strictly refuse, they will give, sir.
They will give. Okay, that is your experience. What about others? Or it is not only about RTO. If you go to any office, okay, suppose if you want to get your income certificate, okay, or any work done from the government office, okay, what is your experience? Are you satisfied with the service that you are going to get in government office, or you are not satisfied?
Sir, they
Not satisfied.
purposefully delay for the money, sir.
Okay, they purposefully demand for
Delay
money,
for the money, sir.
delay for money.
Delay.
Okay. Mohammed Tafin,
Sir,
you want to tell something? You can speak now.
they will not give, sir, at the first time.
Okay, they will not give. So that means you are not satisfied with bureaucratic system. There are limitations with the bureaucratic system.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
even
Sir.
as people, as clients are.
Higher rank than the administrative body, sir.
Can you repeat once again, Nishchay?
The elected members are higher than the other people, sir.
Okay. So there are problems with bureaucratic system also. Okay, any system cannot be an ideal one. Okay, so in bureaucracy they are corrupt. At times they are very rigid. Okay, so they don't. They will show the rule book. Okay, they will find one or other fault and they don't do the work. And often they demand for money, or they are not ready to do work efficiently. These are the consequences. And even as uh, common man, we have noticed some of the limitations of bureaucratic system. Okay, over conformity to rules. In a bureaucratic organization, employees observe, stick to the rule policy because they fear being penalized for the violation of these rules. Okay, there will be a rule book and they will find one or other fault. Okay, when we go for even getting records for a land, farm land, okay, and for getting income certificate, or for getting DL, okay, or anything. So there will be a set of rules. Simply they don't, okay, so easily they don't do work. Okay, they will show the rule book. Now in Indian system, what happen is, so at times they will show the rule, not because they are worried about conformity to rules, because they are worried about getting money. Okay, so they will show rule. If you give more money, they will do your work. This is the problem with bureaucratic system in India. Okay, but otherwise also there are issues with bureaucracy. Even the corruption is not only the issue, there are other issues also. Okay, buck passing. So that means in situations where there are no rules, employees are afraid of taking decisions independently because of the fear that they may be punished for the wrongdoings. At times, some things are not clearly defined in the rule book. Okay, they have to take decisions on their own. They have to make their own decisions. There are no already there are no information available in some cases. Okay, at that time, what they do, instead of taking risk of making a decision, okay, they will either they will keep that as pending. They don't take a decision at all. Or either in otherwise, what they will do, they will send, this is not my work, go to him, go to him. ಒಂದು ಜಾಗದಿಂದ ಒಬ್ಬರಿಂದ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಕಡೆ ಕಳಿಸ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತಾರೆ. Okay, so that is the buck passing. So no one is ready to do that work, or no one is ready to take the risk of making a decision because of the consequences involved in that. Okay, simply they will transfer the decision making role to from one to another. Okay, that is the buck passing. This also often this will also happen. Train incapacity. So that means the individual finds himself incapable to respond appropriately to new situations in other areas. Okay, because of the change in policies. Okay, because of new decisions taken by policy makers. Some bureaucrats, okay, they may not be aware of these things. Because of that, there will be confusion in the system. Okay, so now also in taxation system, after implementation of GST, okay, so there is lot of confusion going around. Okay, so that is also a problem when there are new policies. Okay, so then because of incapability. So people may not be trained properly. Okay, so to cope up with new policies, then also there will be a problem. Next, displacement of goals. That means at times bureaucrats, that means officers, they don't follow or they don't do what they need to do. Okay, they don't perform their duties properly. Instead of that, they may be busy with their own goals. Okay, so ಮಾಡೋ ಕೆಲಸ ಬಿಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಇನ್ನೆಲ್ಲ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ವಾ. So that is the displacement of goals. They don't do their duties. No real right of appeal. The clients of a bureaucratic organization generally feel dissatisfied because they have no real right of appeal. Okay, you know the present status of BSNL. Okay, why even BSNL is in trouble when employees of BSNL are striking, are conducting strikes. Why people are not supporting them? What is the reason? Huh? Why you don't support BSNL? Instead, you support more Jio than BSNL. What is the reason?
Sir, their response for the complaints and problems is not good, sir.
Not good. Okay. So that is another limitation associated with bureaucratic system. Okay. So you know the same issue. The clients of bureaucratic organization. If you consider bureaucratic organization as BSNL, we are the clients. Okay. When we are not satisfied with the service provided by a staff in BSNL office, then if you go for giving complaint against him to the officer of BSNL, then usually there will be an understanding among themselves, understanding among boss and the employee, or understanding among officer and the staff in a particular government office. Then even though if you give complaint, they don't take a necessary action. Okay, so that is the problem. No real right of appeal. Okay, so we don't go for giving complaints so that we can get justice. So that is a problem with bureaucratic system. Okay, in case of BSNL, it is not only the fault of employee. Other than providing services, there are some issues regarding government policies. Okay, they didn't get permission to implement 4G before Jio. There are some problems with the policymakers itself. Okay, they are behaving there are some issues regarding policy making. Okay, neglect of informal groups. Okay, bureaucratic organizations often ignore the existence of informal groups which usually carry out a big chunk of organizational work. That means even in India we have many NGOs. Okay, so they are non-government organizations, so they are doing a lot of good work. Okay, they may be providing food and shelter for poor and needy. Okay, they may be providing health facility, but this bureaucratic system is so rigid that they don't recognize the work done by these NGOs and all. Okay, so that also will happen. Okay, even today also we face this problem. Okay, so our policymakers are against some of the NGOs because of various political reasons. Okay, a rigid structure. This we all have noticed. Okay, so always they try to look at some of the rules and all those things, and they don't do work properly. Inability to satisfy the needs of mature individuals. Okay, this is related to capability of a bureaucrat himself. Okay, suppose you may be a KS officer or IAS officer. Okay, as an individual, you have your own ideas, but because of the rigid structure of bureaucracy, it is not possible for you to implement your own ideas. If you try to implement because of the set of rules in the book, okay, so it may not be possible. So you will be working in under some constraints. That means under set of rigid rules. Okay, so that is also another problem. After some years, you have seen some IAS and IPS officers. After few years of service, they will resign from their work because of quoting many reasons. So that means they have their own intentions. But being in the system, it is not possible to implement all of their ideas. Okay, so that is another limitation of bureaucratic system. Okay, next neoclassical approaches. Okay, you can answer for your attendance in poll. Okay, I will take 1 minute break and I will continue. Okay, you can answer for your attendance. Okay, so next neoclassical approaches. Okay, so we know we are discussing about evolution of management thought, the history of management. Okay, we are considering three major approaches. One is classical approach. Okay, and next is neoclassical approach. Next will be the modern approach. Okay, in classical approach, okay, we discussed about scientific management theory, then we discussed about administration management theory, then we discussed about bureaucracy. Okay, in neoclassical approaches also we are going to discuss about human relations movement. Okay, and there is another approach. Okay, so that we are going to discuss here. So these are called as neoclassical. Neo nothing but new classical approaches. So they are in line with what we have discussed till now. Okay, these approaches are called neoclassical because they do not reject the classical concepts but only try to refine and improve them. So the human relations movement, this is one of the neoclassical approach. It concentrates on people, human relations. Okay, how to manage them. That will be dealt by this. The human relations movement emerged because managers found that Taylor's scientific management and Foyle's administrative management did not quite achieve complete production efficiency and workplace harmony. Okay, so they are not getting desired results by following these two theories. That means the set of principles by Foyle and suggestions made by Taylor. Okay, by following them, some managers thought this system can be improved, or these principles or these theoretical concepts can be improved, can be updated. Okay. Managers still faced difficulties because employees did not always follow predicted or rational patterns of behavior. Thus, there was an increased interest in helping managers deal more effectively with the people side of their organizations. Okay, you may think, okay, so I am going to follow this set of principles and these concepts. I can implement, I can get results, but you have to implement these principles or concepts on people. Okay, people are not like machines. You know, managing people is very difficult when compared with managing machines. If you have skills to operate a machine, you can somehow you can manage, but it is difficult to understand a human being. Okay, the real inspiration for the movement, however, came from the Hawthorne experiments, which were done by Professor Elton Mayo and his colleagues at the Western Electric Company's plant in Cicero, Illinois, from 1927 to 1932. The plant employed 29,000 workers to manufacture telephone parts and equipment. Okay, so Elton Mayo conducted experiments on workers. Okay, so in a company called Western Electric Company, based on the observations he made during the study or from the experimental results, he proposed some of the modifications need to be employed in or need to be included in management theory. Okay, so the experience of the author studies produced a profound impact on the luminaries, means people who are working in human relations movement, who are experts in human relations theory. Okay, so they are called as luminaries. They are nothing but, so they have expertise in a particular field. Okay, so that is, they are called as luminaries. They are nothing but experts. Okay, luminaries of the human relations movement. They came to realize the important role played by informal groups in the working of an organization. Okay, so always, even in class also, you can notice the importance of role played by informal group. That means, if some assignment will be given to you, okay, there is a group tendency. Okay, if someone try to submit an assignment on date, okay, others will say, okay, you don't submit assignment on that day. ಅವತ್ತು ಕೊಡ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗಲ್ಲ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಇರು. Okay, if you have decided to mass bunk the class, and if someone tries to attend the class, then others will demotivate him. Okay, so that means there is a group tendency, group mentality, that will be having a lot of impact on people. Okay, even though they want to attend class, interested in attending class. Okay, they don't allow, or they can influence him not to attend the class. Similarly, while submitting assignment, even there might be a group tendency even for attending online class. So today you can see attendees are less. It may be because of okay, so supplementary exams, or it may be because of, if we don't attend also, there will be no problem, attendance will not be considered. That might be the group mentality. Okay, even in any organization also this will happen. Okay, so this
supplementary program, sir.
Sanjay,
Supplementary, sir.
Supplementary. Okay, okay, if supplementary is the reason, no problem. Okay, later they will get attendance. Suppose if they don't have proper reasons, if I mark absent, we don't know what will going to happen in future. Okay, when offline classes will be started, we don't know. Okay, but next week I am going to conduct CAE for 10 marks. Okay, on Monday I will explain you about the new format for CAE evaluation. Okay, this time it is different from previous semesters. Okay, so that I will explain on Monday. In next week I will conduct CAE. Okay, CAE will be conducted at class level. Okay, for 10 marks for each module, after completion of each module, or after some classes. Okay, CAE will be conducted for 10 marks, 4 CAE for 40 and 10 marks will be for activity. Okay, I will explain on Monday, explain the new scheme of evaluation on Monday. Okay. Research scholars then began to concentrate on the human aspect of management and the principle that when people work together to accomplish group objectives, people should understand people. Okay, so this is the when we are working in team, you have to understand team members. Again, understanding people is difficult. Okay, and you cannot say I completely understood someone else. It is not possible. Okay, people behave differently in different situations. So this human relations movement concentrated on the behavior of people. Okay, contributions of the human relations movement. A business organization is not merely a techno-economic system, but is also a social system, because we know any organization or any manufacturing company includes 3 types of resources. Okay, one is materials or machine, that is technical in nature; money, that is economic in nature; people, that is social in nature. Man is a social animal. As we know, human being is a social animal. Wherever there are number of people, there will be a social system. That's why a business organization is not only a techno-economic system, but it is also a social system. There are people. Hence, it is as important for it to provide social satisfaction to the workers as to produce goods. Okay, so this is the suggestion made by human relations movement or human relations theory. There is no correlation between improved working conditions and high production. So based on the experiments conducted by Elton Mayo, it was found that if the working conditions are improved, that may not result in increasing production. Okay, you may not find direct relation between improved working condition and high production. That is, you may disagree. Again, this is based on a particular study. There are agreements and there are disagreements. Okay. A worker's production norm is set and enforced by his group and not by the time and motion study done by any industrial engineer. That means, okay, getting work done by people is not a mechanical activity. It involves a lot of emotional quotient and the mood of the worker, the interest and other factors. Okay, so that was identified by this human relations movement. It is not only about conducting time and motion study so that you can find one best way to do a job. Practically, that may not be completely accepted. Okay, so those who deviate from the group norm are penalized by their co-workers, as we discussed. Okay, when a class decided to do mass bunk, if some don't accept the co-workers is nothing but your classmates, then you will be penalized. Okay, so others will blame you. Okay, for attending the class when the entire class decided to do mass bunk. This will happen. Even in the organizations also, this will happen. Okay, so there will be informal groups among workers. A worker does not work for money only. Non-financial rewards such as affection and respect of his co-workers also significantly affect his behavior and largely limit the effect of economic incentive plan. So that means even though if the salary is getting for his job, if it is good, if his co-workers are not cooperating with him, okay, then worker may not be satisfied. Okay, that is also another observation made during Hawthorne's experimental study. Okay. Employee-centered, democratic and participative style of supervisory leadership is more effective than task-centered leadership. That means if you want to get work done like mechanically, okay, without any interaction, that might not be a good approach. Okay, so instead of that, employee-centered, democratic and participative style. That means if you can involve employee in decision-making process, okay, that is good, rather than suggesting employees to do a particular work in particular ways. Okay, so this is another thing. Okay, so the informal group and not the individual is the dominant unit of analysis in organization. That means, as we discussed, there are informal groups. Okay, so they will play, they will have influence on workers. Limitations of the human relations movement. Someone argue that it is a swing in the opposite direction and is as much incomplete as the scientific management and administrative management approaches. Even some experts criticized this human relations movement for various reasons. Okay, the human relation writers saw only the human variable as critical and ignored other variables. Okay, as we know, in management, it includes material, manpower, that is human beings or worker, and money. Okay, here the problem with these approaches is some approaches will concentrate on materials, some approaches will concentrate on money, and some approaches will concentrate only on human beings, that is man. Okay, even this human relation, some argue that this human relations movement or this approach is concentrating more on manpower and it is neglecting utilization of machines properly and Okay, economic aspects involved. It is not concentrating on those things. Okay, the belief of this approach that an organization can be turned into one big happy family where it is always possible to find a solution which satisfies everybody is not correct. Okay, this is a fact. Even in a family, okay, if there are four in a family, it is difficult to have coordination among four. That is a fact. Okay, so that's why you can see now instead of having giant families, we have fragmented families. The reason is having coordination with a large number of people is a very difficult task to achieve. Okay, in an ideal state, you may see that in films or in serials. Practically, it is difficult to have coordination, have healthy relation with people. Okay, so that's why some people argue that the belief of this approach that an organization can be turned into one big happy family where it is always possible to find a solution to satisfy everybody is not correct. Okay, even in family, there are disagreements. There are quite often there are quarrels going on. Okay, so that is part of human nature. Okay, so in organization also there will be disagreements. Okay, so there will be difference of opinions. Okay, even in class also if there are 50 students. Okay, so there are different opinions. Some will agree for something, some will disagree. Okay, this will happen in industry also. This approach overemphasizes the importance of symbolic rewards and underplays the role of material rewards. Okay, so this is another major limitation of this human relations movement. It says, okay, so employees efficiency doesn't directly related, cannot be related to salary paid to him. Okay, this may mislead the management. Okay, so that was the concern by some of the people, some of the experts who criticized this approach. Okay, that means it underplays the role of material rewards. It underplays the role of salary hike, promotions, okay, in worker efficiency. If someone consider this seriously, suggestion of human relation movement, he may not give proper salary to employee. Okay, that is the consequence. That is another limitation of this one. Okay, this approach provides an unrealistic picture about informal groups by describing them as a major source of satisfaction for industrial workers. Moreover, informal groups, wherever they exist, can only make the workers' day more pleasant and not his task, which continues to remain repetitive, monotonous, and uncreative. Okay, as we discussed in class, also there will be group tendency. Okay, you may at times you may enjoy spending rather than sitting in the class. You may enjoy spending time with your classmates outside the classroom. Okay, but the problem is you have not joined college for spending time with your classmates. You have another task. You have another intention, that is to study and to get engineering degree or to acquire knowledge in the domain you have chosen. So here the intention is to get engineering degree or to gain knowledge in engineering domain. That is the main task. Okay, but even though you may like to spend time with your friends, okay, so that is not correct. You will spend your entire time. You want to spend your entire time with your friends. If someone perceive like that, that is also incorrect. Okay, so that is the same thing. Even people may like to be part of informal groups. That doesn't mean they want to, they are completely deviated from the actual task. That is also not correct. Okay, this approach is in fact production oriented and not employee oriented as it claims to be. The reason is it suggested, okay, there is no direct relation with monetary benefits, that is salary and employee efficiency of the employee. Okay, so that's why it is production oriented, not employee oriented. Okay, this approach is based on a wrong assumption that satisfied employee workers are more productive workers. Okay, next, there is another approach, behavioral approach. This I discuss in next class. Okay, on Monday. Okay, if you have anything to ask, you can ask. Otherwise, I will wind up this class. Okay, so if you have any